The Bûche de Noël holds a very special place for us because Bûche de Noël is the traditional Christmas cake in the south of France, or in France, really. And Bûche de Noël, we always have it out on New Year's Eve, but also enjoy it on Christmas Day. And it's part of the 13 desserts that we make every year, which is a Toulonnais or Provençal tradition, where we set out 13 little desserts on Christmas Eve that we enjoy all throughout Christmas weekend. So this is rather an elaborate recipe because there's lots of steps to it. However, I've broken it down so that each step you can follow. And it's quite simple once you look at each component separately. We're going to make a chocolate chinoise cake, which is a rich dark chocolate cake. We're also going to make a soaking syrup for the cake. We're also going to make an orange zest buttercream with crème marnier. This crème marnier that I've snuck into almost every part of this recipe because I love crème marnier in Christmas baking. The flavors of orange and spice, they really go very nicely. And then Sebastian's famous chocolate ganache, his chocolate ganache that he learned to make when he was working in Michelin star restaurants in France, that you can use for so many different things, whether it be for the top of this Bûche de Noël, or if you want to put it in a pie tart, you can put the chocolate ganache directly in a little pie tart, and it makes the most amazing dessert. And then lastly, we're also going to be making a hazelnut brittle. Now, if you have gifts to give to teachers or to neighbors or to friends, you'll want to save this hazelnut brittle recipe because it is absolutely wonderful to give as a gift. And you can make a large batch of it and then put it in little baggies and gift away. So without further ado, we're going to pass it over to you, Sébastien, to make the ganache.
Let's start the ganache with some nice, Caraïbe chocolate from Valrhona. We start to put melt, on the microwave oven for 1 minute. Without the butter, without the cream. 1 minute. After that, you have a nice bain-marie, the bowl, and we are going to finalize on the bowl, the bain-marie.
So bain-marie, for those of you who don't know, is a way to melt chocolate or warm up eggs without it being stuck on the stove, by putting some water at the bottom of a casserole and bringing it up to a simmer, and then putting a stainless steel mixing bowl on top of your casserole. You're actually protecting the elements from the heat, and then they're less likely to burn.
Let's start with the butter in the bowl. We're waiting for the chocolate.
And Sebastian likes to use
ready with the cream.
Yes, Sebastian likes to use a silicone spatula. Which is very useful because things don't stick to it as you're making the bain-marie. And we have all our ingredients portioned out here for you so that you can see as we're using. And it's very important to have room temperature butter and also room temperature eggs.
This is the chocolate, just melt as you want.
So these are 70% dark chocolate pellets from Valrhona, which are really high quality chocolate pellets and great for melting and baking. Please no Nestle Toll House chocolate chips here because you really want that high quality dark chocolate. Okay.
Now that the butter starts to melt with the chocolate, we put slowly the cream.
I'm actually going to bring the camera over and show you what he's doing here. So Valrhona you can actually find in grocery stores at Whole Foods, or else you can order off Amazon. So you can see that the chocolate melts really quickly, but softly, so you're not burning the chocolate here.
It's very important for the brie en dessous.
You want a shiny ganache that's going to just be like a mirror glaze on top of the cake. So we're taking our time to make sure that it's all incorporated. And when you break it out step by step, you'll be able to then at the end put all these steps together for the final bûche. And the word bûche de Noël actually is the French version of Yule log. So if you think about the shape of a log in a Yule log, this is a bûche, which is the French word for log.
Yes.
But we're not going to put chocolate frosting on it and make it look like a log because we're not going to do that. We're going to really go for that nice, smooth, shiny ganache. Look how silky that looks. C'est trop beau, chérie. This is my son's favorite.
Un petit peu de Grand Marnier.
Okay, we're going to give the Grand Marnier. This right here. Lequel? Celui-ci? Celui-ci. So
Grand Marnier, vas-y. Voilà.
And you put the Grand Marnier after it's melted, and then you just stir it in.
Now you have the nice ganache, very brilliant, nice. Look at that. Very nice. Let's put this in the fridge.
So while he's doing that, we're going to start the simple syrup. Now the simple syrup is really important for making sure that you have a nice moist bûche de Noël, because you don't want a dry cake when you're eating it. You really want to have that kind of the syrup that engorges the cake as well. So we're going to use about a half cup of water, about 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar, and
Very easy.
2 tablespoons of Grand Marnier. Because of course, why not put the Grand Marnier in the simple syrup as well?
And Grand Marnier at the beginning. Voilà.
So now we have to bring it up to a simmer, and that's how you make the syrup. It's really as easy as that. You're going to simmer it for how long?
About 15 minutes.
So we'll let that simmer, and then we'll actually start the cake. Okay. I'm going to do the cake. So we have our bain-marie, which we're going to use here. We've got about 3 inches of water in the bottom of the pan, and then we have a stainless steel bowl. And we're going to crack 6 whole eggs directly into the bowl. Now this is not egg yolks or egg whites, it's 6 whole eggs to make a nice sponge. So I'm just whisking the eggs together here so that they're nice and mixed before I add in the sugar. And then so that was 6 eggs. We're going to add about 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar, just plain white sugar. And then we're going to mix together. Thanks, babe. I'm going to try and nicely mix it before I put it on. And then now we're going to put it on the bain-marie. And it's just some elbow grease here now. Yes, please. I did the earlier version because we made an earlier cake as well. And my arm got a little tired. Yeah. Oh. This is what the earlier cake looks like. So we're going to show you how it is when it's unrolled. So when I was doing it earlier this morning, it was a full 4 minutes of beating together these. What we're making sure is that we have no more granules. I'm going to show here. So we don't want any granules in the egg mixture. So we want the sugar to be perfectly blended. So Sebastian is a former boxer. So it actually works very well in the kitchen because he can whip eggs for a long time.
Look at that. Look at the color.
Oh.
Look at the color.
Clear syrup, we're going to allow that to cool. So that was probably only 5 to 7 minutes? 10 minutes? Okay. And it smells delicious in the kitchen already. So he's going to put in the egg emulsion. And there's no, you can see that the eggs are not cooked. It's just perfectly foamy and frothy, and that's what's going to make the base of the cake here. So now I'm going to get that over here. I'm going to feed in the cocoa powder and the flour. And this is going to make the batter for the cake. Now, very important to use a sifter or sifting, sorry. And also the baking soda, which I had right there. Thank you. Use the sifters so that you're not getting clumps in the cake because you're looking for a light, airy dough for the cake or base for the cake. Now you can sift like this as I'm doing, or a trick that I learned that goes even much quicker is take a spoon and kind of stir the bottom of the, so we're just mixing all, making sure that we're sifting the flour and cocoa powder and baking soda all together into the batter. There we go. Merci, chérie. And now I'm going to go put that directly under the stand mixer so that it can be really mixed together. And we're going to be on medium high. Go. Now, because of the magic of preparing in advance, I have one that is already rolled out right here. Because what you're going to do is beat that for eight minutes together, and then you're going to put it in a baking pan, which I will show you how we do. This is a small 10 by 14 baking pan that I'm going to make sure it's really nicely greased. And my son decided not to take a nap today, so we have an extra sous chef in the kitchen. I'm going to put some baking sprays. We're going to put some baking sprays. No, don't touch. Don't touch here. And then we're going to use one of the parchment sheets. Now, if you haven't bought these parchment sheets before, I really love them because they're nice and flat. And you just take them out exactly like this. And you put it directly into the pan. And I'm going to put a little bit more spray to grease it. You can also just take a piece of butter and grease your parchment sheet as well. And then when the batter is ready, you're going to pour the batter directly into the pan like this. And then put it in the oven for 20 minutes. And you want the batter to be nice and spongy when you touch it.
Yes. Let's start with the hazelnut, the brittle.
No, je vais faire le sirop. I don't have the buttercream. Okay.
Donc,
now we're going to do the hazelnut brittle.
And caramel à sec. Just sugar and butter with the hazelnut. Let's start to put the sugar on the pan. Now for the caramel à sec, it's very important that the temperature, bonjour Pierre, that the temperature is very high. And you have your butter on it, the 2 tablespoons of butter plus the hazelnut. Batter time 8 minutes. You can do this by hand, and you just have to blanchir your eggs, a little bit longer. Except of 4 minutes, you blanch it, you whiten the egg for 8 minutes, and after that, you can mix all together.
So the caramel, you just put the sugar in there, and the important thing is to not let it burn, because if you are, if you let the caramel burn, it's going to really affect the flavor of it. You want it just to slightly melt.
Can you show?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to show you.
You see the small crystal of sugar? This is very nice.
So it's just the sugar and the butter. It's 2 tablespoons of butter and 3/4 of a cup of sugar.
The butter, we put this on the oven. Yeah. Look at that.
And it's not and so the heat is medium. So it's not letting it get too hot, and you don't want it to bubble, right?
Yeah.
If you could smell the kitchen right now, it smells so good. Perfect. Yeah. how long do you make the caramel for?
We started, you know, at 21, you know, because it's a small quantity, very good. Did you see how it's nice? Now it's blonde, you know, what's interesting is that you can put, you know, directly the hazelnut on it. You mix it, and we are going to put the butter now. Stop the light and the butter.
So he turned the heat off, and now he's going to add the butter to the caramel. There we go. Can you get a hand for you?
Yeah.
And we're going to get a pan like this. This is another 10 by 14 pan that we are going to put another piece of parchment paper over. So it doesn't stick, because the hazelnut brittle will stick very, very well. And I'm going to butter this as well. And for the stick. There you are. So we have sprayed the pan here. And once it's all mixed together.
What's interesting is that when you have all of the hazelnut, you know, caramelized together and you put the butter, it's very nice. And this is important to put the butter at the end.
Pourquoi?
Comme ça va les empêcher de ne pas coller. Ça va coller.
And that's going to help it too, so that the hazelnuts don't stick together. Is by adding the butter at the end, because caramel, of course, is very sticky. And he's turned off the heat at this point. We're continuing with the butter.
If you like the caramel beurre salé, this is exactly the same recipe for caramel beurre salé. Caramel départ à sec with the butter, you put a little bit of the same, you know, and you can see, you know, you see the nappage. You see the nappage here? How it's beautiful. The base, this is very nice.
So he's saying that if you like salted butter caramel, that this is exactly the recipe for salted butter caramel. You start with the dry sugar on a dry pan, you let it start to melt, and then you add in the butter, and then you add in a little bit of fleur de sel, which is right here. The big French sea salt, like this.
Now, as you can see how it's nice. It's very easy. Look. La poêle.
Right. So it's just going to spoon the hazelnuts onto the pan.
Voilà.
Perfect. And now they're left like this on the pan. And we're just going to leave them exactly like this so that it gets cool and it will harden. And then we are going to crack it up a little bit to put on the Bûche de Noël. And you're absolutely right. There's like 6 different recipes in one here. And all of these recipes you can use for so many different baking treats.
But look at that. Did you see the butter and the caramel with the hazelnut? This is very good.
Okay, cake time. So now we're going to go back to the cake. So it's doubled in volume here, right? Yeah. Thank you, thank you. This is what the cake batter looks like now. And we're going to pour it directly into the pan that we have buttered and lined with parchment paper here. Est-ce que je peux avoir un main, s'il te plaît?
Oui. Il n'y a pas une de fois?
One moment. And we're going to make sure to get all that yummy batter in there. Can you go down, turn down our son's TV? This is the beauty of cooking in a small kitchen, but in a small kitchen with kids is you never know how you're going to be interrupted or how they're going to incorporate themselves into the recipe as well. And I think that that's really kind of cool too. I have to taste the batter, it's delicious. So the batter is nice and liquid, and we're actually just going to tap it a couple times here, and we're going to put it directly in the oven for 20 minutes.
Voilà.
It is on the middle rack, and it's in the oven for 20 minutes. I'm going to set the timer. And we'll take it out in 20 minutes once it's nice and spongy. I will admit something, because of course I'm talking as I'm doing this. I did miss a step. Did anybody catch that? Oh, the oven is at 350, but I missed a step. Normally I should have put it in the stand mixer and let it beat for a full 8 minutes before adding in the flour and the chocolate. So we're going to do an experiment together, because I put it directly in the stand mixer and added in the flour and the chocolate and didn't follow my own recipe. So hopefully it turns out all right. If it doesn't, I know why. It's because I didn't take the time to really whip those eggs and get them to triple in volume, as it says in the recipe. He's like, you'll be okay. He saw me do it.
Because if you don't have, the stand-up mixer, like we talked, before, if you eat your eggs with the sugar, be sure, like we say in French, les blanchir. If you do this, steps for 8 minutes, the foam, are going to eat, and you are going to have all of the sugar melt in the eggs. This is why this is the base of Italian meringue, we are good. You are good. No
Okay.
worries.
Things happen when you're cooking, right? But it's knowing that how to catch them, which I think is really the mark of expertise in the kitchen. So we're going to make the buttercream, and then we're going to roll out the cake, and we can start decorating it as well.
Yes.
So to make the buttercream, I have 3 sticks of butter. I have brought them to room temperature so that I can easily kind of manage them. We're going to put the 3 sticks of butter. Thank you. 3 sticks of butter together with 1 cup of icing sugar. And this is so much better to use real buttercream than it is to use frosting. I use this buttercream recipe. You can use it for everything that you make. I make my kids' birthday cakes every single year, and it's really great to use this buttercream. So I have 3 sticks of room temperature butter. I have 3 tablespoons of whole milk. I'm actually going to use the other. Wait, I'm going to use the paddle attachment to make this. 1 second. Which of course I don't know where it is now. I'm going to find my paddle attachment for the mixer. Do you really, baby? Avec le fouet? Okay, je fais avec le fouet. I'm going to use with the whisk. And I'm just going to start mixing my butter together. It's nice and malleable because, of course, it's fully room temperature. And then we are going to add in, where is my buttercream? We're going to add in 3 tablespoons of whole milk. We also have the zest from 1 orange. And we're also going to add in 1 tablespoon of orange juice and 1 tablespoon of pomegranate. Yes. So if you don't have a microplane zester, I highly recommend them because they're great for zesting oranges and lemons and grapefruits. We use a lot of citrus zest in our cooking because French Riviera cooking has a lot of citrus flavors because, of course, the region of Menton, the town of Menton is known as the citrus capital of the world, and there's lots of oranges and lemons in Menton. So we use them a lot in French Riviera cooking. Is this the orange juice made for me here?
Yes.
Perfect. So we're also going to add in, so we have the butter with the orange zest, the milk, and the orange juice. And we're going to add in the icing sugar for consistency. And we're going to keep on scraping the sides of the stand mixer so that we're getting all the ingredients together. For a few minutes and let that really mix nicely together. We have the orange zest, the orange juice, and the milk.
Donc maintenant c'est parfait.
Okay.
Now it's perfect because the liquid mixed with the butter. We are good to put the sugar now.
Okay. And I'm going to put the icing sugar in, and I'm going to let it go all the way to the bottom, or else you get a big powder when you start mixing. And always start very on a slow speed after you put the icing sugar in, or else it makes that big cloud as you see in the movies. That makes a big mess in the kitchen. One thing that's incredible about cooking with an executive chef is that he's really taught me the art of cleaning as you go. And cleaning up as you're cooking is a really great trick for reducing the stress level and also increasing the enjoyment when you're cooking.
Donc là, tu vois, tu n'avais pas la queue de cochon, mais on a fait ça avec le poulet, donc c'est parfait. Pour dire ça au...
So I didn't have the ladle attachment, but I used the whisk, and it's looking really, really good. So we're happy about that. Oh, it looks so good. I'm going to show you. So you can see how the buttercream is looking. 1 second. It's looking nice and creamy and has that nice orange color to it. And it's the consistency of butter now. It basically is butter. You're just spreading butter on cake. It's wonderful. Are we ready to unroll the cake, babe?
Yes.
Okay. So we are going to show you how we roll up the cake when the cake is done out of the oven. But right now we're going to show you how to roll the cake, or unroll the cake. So this is a clean kitchen towel that I have wrapped around the cake that I made this morning. And I tied it with my daughter's hair elastic so that it stays nicely together. Can you overmix can you overmix the buttercream? Est-ce que tu peux trop? Can you overmix it?
No, it will be very hard.
It'd be very hard to overmix the buttercream.
No,
it's not like meringue.
Because this one, you know, we don't have a chimic powder or mix, you know, it's really just butter. This is why more really. You can drink a glass of wine and pour it for
I'm gonna get 1 pan.
Voilà. Let's see it.
Now it's a trick. I'm going to unroll the cake, but onto a rack here, because when we put the ganache on, we're going to let the ganache fall into the pan instead of pooling it around the cake, so that you have a much neater presentation for your cake. So if I unroll the cake, this is my little sausage roll here.
Look at that. You see with the zest inside? Very easy to work with.
Okay, I want to show them how I'm unrolling the cake bake.
Hopefully.
Oh. And I'm going to gently, do you want to show? This is very, very gently. I'm unrolling the cake here. And so you see that it's, there's ridges in it. That's okay. It's not cracked. And even if it's cracked, you can fix it. So don't even worry. If the cake is a little cracked, you can fix it. But this is a critical moment, because this is what makes the roll in the cake, right?
Yes.
And we take that torchon out, and we've got an unrolled cake here. And then because it is sans quoi?
Sans la flamme dessous.
We're gonna just here.
Voilà.
Okay.
If you see the small piece here, it's okay. We put syrup on it.
So we can repair a lot of things. So he's going to take the syrup and he's going to dab it all over the cake, and it's going to add additional moisture. Now this one has been in the fridge for about 2 hours. It doesn't need to stay that long in the fridge. You just want to make sure that the cake cools completely, being tightly wound up in the torchon, in the kitchen towel and the parchment paper. So he's dabbed the Grand Marnier simple syrup all over the cake. And it's going to add up that really nice moisture before we roll it back up. Attention, pas de le casser, là, chérie.
Non, chérie, ça va rouler, ça va tenir.
I told him, be careful not to break it.
Non,
and he said,
tenir.
don't worry about it because it's
Ça va tenir, ça va rouler.
because we're going to roll it back up again. So now we're going to add in the buttercream.
Look at that.
Oh my gosh.
Look at that, that was beautiful. Did
It's
you
not
see?
done yet.
You see?
Est-ce que c'est fini?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay.
Allez,
Okay, so now the buttercream.
une petite spatule.
So you take a spatula.
Il faut la spatule qui est dedans.
Oh, this spatula. Oh, this spatula. You want to take an offset spatula for buttercream. And he's going to put the cream directly in the center. And he's going to spread it all across the cake so that you have it, you see the clear rolls. Now, if you want to be really kind to yourself, you can use chocolate buttercream. You can add 2 teaspoons of cocoa powder into the buttercream, and it makes for a chocolate flavor, which is also really nice, but also shows the roll a little bit less. So if your roll is not perfect, it's good to use chocolate buttercream because then it hides it a little bit. And we get you a big
We just, put slightly the butter to be sure it's equal, everywhere. What's interesting when you put, the simple syrup on the génoise when it's cold, when you slightly put, the buttercream everywhere. I don't know if you see, you have a small crumble of the génoise in the buttercream. It's amazing. Did you see it? Look at that.
And it's okay.
Yes.
Don't stress out about it.
This is what we want.
We're gonna leave some buttercream on the side because we're gonna coat the cake in buttercream afterwards as well.
Yeah.
So that it is a nice slick base for the ganache.
Voilà. Now it's
Perfect. Now we can roll.
Yeah, keep it.
You wanna roll?
Okay.
I'm gonna take the end. Should I take this end?
Yes.
Yes.
Look at that.
Do I want to put some extra buttercream right here?
No.
Okay. Now, look. Now, what's important is to really apply pressure here, okay? Tu peux montrer avec la caméra?
Non. Ça tient pas trop la caméra.
So if you show it here, I'm just gonna roll it.
Pressure, more pressure.
More pressure to keep it and, oh, but I don't want to crack it.
It's okay. Okay. No.
Let's go.
Attention.
And we're just rolling it back up, and it cracked a little bit, but that's okay. We can make it work. So we're going to coat it in buttercream anyways.
When it's rolled like that, don't hesitate, to put the wrap like that to be sure it's finished properly. Did you see it? You can see, you can share.
Beautiful. So now we have a proper Swiss roll. Now, of course, you could just stop there if you wanted to. You could stop there, and it's an incredible cake already with a decadent buttercream, a dark chocolate cake. But of course, we're not going to stop there. We're going to decorate it as if it was in a fancy French pâtisserie. We're going to add a little bit of buttercream over the top of the cake so it kind of seals the cake for adding the ganache afterwards. Oh, le gâteau. Oh, I'm going to take it out of the oven. In the meanwhile, I'm going to take the cake out of the oven. Careful, babe. That's good. So you're just putting a nice coating of the buttercream over the top of this Genoise dark chocolate cake. And we're gonna cover it with the chocolate ganache. And so Sebastian's making stripes on the cake. And we're gonna have those stripes kind of show up with the ganache as well.
Yeah.
Can I show tipping over the cake?
Yeah.
Esther? Michael?
Yes, look at that. That was beautiful. Did somebody have question or no? Is that good?
Okay.
You can put it here.
And we're gonna put a little bit of the buttercream on the edges as well,
Yes.
so that all sides of the cake are covered.
Maintenant, tu peux montrer.
Okay. And I'll show you here. This is what it looks like now. And we're actually going to put this into the fridge for a couple minutes so that the butter starts to harden again, and it creates an even base for the.
It's nice, no?
It's very nice. Beautifully done, babe. Okay, ready to roll the cake? So we're going to step back a few steps as if we had just taken the chocolate cake out of the oven. And I'm going to take a cooling rack here. And I'm going to flip over the cake that has parchment paper on it, so that it's directly on the cooling. Got to get a grab of it. Careful, because it is hot. And you just flip it over like that. And then you're going to lift the cake up, the pan up. There we are.
Oh.
And we're going to let it cool for a minute on the rack. And then I'm going to take another rack. Where's my other rack? I had another cooling rack. Oh, it's underneath the Bûche de Noël. To flip it over again, so that I have the parchment, which is on the base. Actually, I can do it like this. Here we are. So I'm taking my cutting board because I didn't have two cooling racks, so it's always improvisation, right? If you don't have two cooling racks, just use the cutting board. And I'm going to put it on top of the parchment, and I'm going to flip them over again, so that my cake has the parchment on the underside. And now I'm going to use my grandmother's rolling pin, and you're going to compress the cake slightly so that you can get a better roll. Because you don't want too thick of a cake, or else you won't get a nice roll on it.
Tu roules là-dedans?
No, c'est celui-là.
Okay.
Were you just wiping the counter with it? Make sure you know which one is your cake rolling. Oh, I don't want to stain those ones. And I'm just rolling the rolling pin on top of the warm cake. Okay, so this is important that you do it while the cake is warm. It just cools for a little moment. And then you're going to put the kitchen rag directly on top of the cake. Can you show them?
Yes.
With the camera?
Yes. Tu veux que je le fasse? Je le fais.
You're gonna, okay. So the kitchen rag is on top of the cake right now.
Yes, it's very important that you keep, the foil here, and you are going to roll it, Start, the first step here.
And apply a lot of pressure.
Yeah. You know, did you see it very well? Or it's very easy. Did you see that?
And just gently roll, applying pressure as you roll.
Did you see?
And then you're going to continue to roll until you're at the end of your kitchen towel.
Et voilà.
Et voilà. And you have the perfect roll for your Bûche de Noël. And I'm going to take my daughter's hair ties again. And I'm going to tie each side so that it makes like a Christmas sweet. This way.
You know that with a torchon like that, it's amazing. So very well. Really well.
And then this is going to go into the fridge. And you'll have your Bûche de Noël cake. I would let it cool probably at least 30 minutes in the fridge so that it really takes the shape. And because it's rolled when it's hot, you're not going to have any difficulty rolling it back up to decorate like we did earlier.
And I don't know if you see, you know, in the recipe, we make a nicely slight mistake, you know, because we keep the roll on the fridge for 2 hours. It's cracked a little bit, but with the buttercream, look at that. It's beautiful. Nobody can see it, even on the middle, you know, because you are going to have the nice roll of the log. If, you know, it's too difficult for you because it's a little bit too cold, just keep it 1 hour, you know, in the fridge and leave this on the counter to be sure it's more easy for you to roll and to work with. But you can have something nice. Let's finish it.
Okay. Any questions so far? Do you want a ladle? We're going to get the ladle now.
And we are going to crack the nice. Did you see it?
So this is really, it's a brittle now, just like peanut brittle or any kind of brittle.
The roll.
So we're looking for something a little bit more cracked than peanut brittle.
Voila. I'm going to try one for you.
It is so yummy.
Chocolate ganache.
And we're going to put the chocolate ganache over the cake as well. One ladle.
Mm-hmm.
So the chocolate ganache is nice and shiny. And he's going to cut the parchment paper around it so that it doesn't pool under the cake. But he's leaving some parchment paper underneath, so it's easily to remove it. Yeah. So I thought, question, how long in advance can you make this? You can make this, actually, if you go up to this step, you can make it a couple days in advance. But you just have to make sure that you apply the buttercream, because the buttercream will keep it from drying out in the fridge. The buttercream adds a layer of moisture, and then just make sure you
like it?
As any cakes with buttercream, before you eat it, make sure that it's out on the counter for 2 hours so that the butter gets back to room temperature.
Let's continue.
So now we have that nice shiny ganache, and he's just going to ladle it over the top. And it creates a beautiful, elegant cover. That's just going to melt over. It's still a little warm.
Yeah, but it's okay. Put this in the fridge for 2 minutes.
Because it's when it's warm, you see that it melts off the side a little bit more. If it was just a little bit more chill, then you would have. If it was cooler, sorry, then it wouldn't melt as much. But we're gonna put it in the fridge. The fridge is your best friend when you're making a cake. Put things into the fridge as often as possible. If you're struggling with putting on buttercream on a cake, put it in the fridge. Is it possible to freeze the bûche? I wouldn't freeze it without the buttercream. I think you could freeze the bûche with the buttercream. Yes. You'd have to go all the way to the step where we showed you where we have the buttercream around it before freezing. Because if you do it any earlier, you're not going to be able to roll the cake as well. Okay.
We keep this, and after we put the brittle to decorate.
Okay. So we've got this nice little brittle. I'm going to actually break it up a few pieces up a little bit more, so that we have more of a kind of a dust to go around. N'est-ce pas, chérie? I'm going to take this. You can also use the bottom of a saucepan. I actually really enjoy this process. So I have a few big pieces that I'm leaving out, and then I've got some smaller pieces that I'm making kind of like a brittle dust that I can put around the base of the cake. It's so tasty. Okay. On est prêt?
Look at that.
So even just a couple minutes in the fridge. Tu veux ajouter un peu plus de ganache? Pour couvrir le blanc?
Oui, si tu veux.
Wait, where did it go?
Dans le frigo.
Okay.
Mais pas trop non plus.
I want to cover the.
Attends.
Je vais couvrir le blanc. We're just going to add a little bit more ganache so that we cover the white.
Look at that.
And he's going to take just the brittle and add it on top of the bûche.
And
Our ganache is still rather warm.
ça va tenir.
But as it chills, you're going to see a nice shiny chocolate.
It's more easy to take when you have
The
the
paper.
parchment paper on it.
So we're continuing to decorate it on the wire rack because we have the parchment paper underneath that's going to slide out. Perfect. And so use as much of the brittle as you want to use. I have to keep some for my kids because I know that they're going to be asking for it.
I'm gonna put this on the fridge.
Okay, he's putting it in the fridge for 2 minutes. So any questions?
How far in advance this can be made for Christmas?
So you can make the Bûche de Noël
3 days before.
3 days before.
Yeah.
3 days before if you want it to stay moist. You can also freeze it if you put all the buttercream around it and finalize the cake before you add the ganache. You can freeze that entirely and keep that for a couple weeks.
But just two important thing is that the butter and chocolate are two particular ingredients in kitchen that when you put this in the fridge without a cover, it takes, you know, the smell of the other thing and the other produce you have in the fridge. This is why it's always better to cover it with a plastic cloche, you know, or plastic cover cake, you know, to be sure it's very hermetic. If you don't have that, I don't recommend that you leave this in the fridge like that. It will take the...
It takes the taste of cheese or meat or anything else. So always cover your cake. And the way I would cover a cake like that is I would put toothpicks in it and then put saran wrap around so that the toothpicks are touching the saran wrap, not the cake.
Any other decoration that is traditional to put on the bûche?
We went a little bit fancier with the glossy chocolate ganache and the hazelnut brittle. You can also just do very simple, do a chocolate buttercream, as I said. So just add 2 teaspoons of cocoa powder into the buttercream as you're mixing it. And then you can run your fork along the chocolate buttercream to make kind of ridges so it looks like a log. And then just sprinkle icing sugar over the top of it, a light dusting of icing sugar so it looks like a log at Christmas. That's actually a more traditional decoration for a bûche. And it also It hides all manner of sins. If you just put the chocolate ganache and then icing sugar on top, you don't see any mistakes that you made. If you've covered up cracks, if you have a buttercream that's kind of clumpy, icing sugar is your best friend when you're baking, if you're making mistakes.
We have 2 more questions here from Janet and from Sarah as well. So Janet was asking, can you make brittle and soaking liquid in advance?
Absolutely. The brittle can be made how long in advance then?
I want to say, 5 days.
5 days in advance, the brittle. We're going to be making brittle for our...
And you keep them, in a plastic container. It's very important.
Yes, keep it in a Tupperware container. And then so it doesn't dry out.
Yes, very.
Was the ganache in the fridge from the time it was on the stove until you put it on the bûche?
Yes, you need to let the ganache cool down, or else it's going to melt the buttercream. You really need to think of the temperature of it.
But not too cool, not too cold, because you cannot. And if you want to, you can put, some petal here and there,
He loves to use fresh flowers. He's just improvising now.
know.
Well, that looks really festive, baby.
Yeah, so I have the question that shows how scared I am. To make this kind of rolling and unrolling of cake, can we make the cake, the base, and instead of rolling it, cut it in widths of different size, and then assemble it with the buttercream in the middle and doing like that, or not?
Yes,
You could, but that's actually much more difficult than the rolling.
No, believe me, I've tried the rolling so many times.
So the trick to the rolling is not letting your cake cook too much. So really follow the instructions and you want to keep an eye on the cake and make sure that it's spongy. And if it means taking it out, because oven temperatures, they change drastically. What is 350 in my oven, unless you actually have an oven temperature gauge inside, could be very different. So keep an eye on the cake, and the moment that it's springy to the touch and feels firm, but not like a firm, hard surface. You want it to be spongy, right? You take it out, and then you make sure to roll it while it's warm, okay? That's really important. So that's why I have the wire rack underneath that I flipped over, and then I put the cutting board on the other side and flipped it over again, because you need the parchment paper to be underneath, and then you need to put the tea towel on the top, and then just apply pressure as you're rolling. Oh, we have to put it in the, okay. We have to put it in the fridge. If I were to cut it now, we would have a gloppy mess, right? So always remember to put things in the fridge. Again, you can see photos of it opened up. I know those were actually little flower petals, edible flower petals that he added onto it. But a bûche de Noël, you can decorate however you would like. And remember, if I put different suggestions of flavors of buttercream, so I used the orange zest and the Grand Marnier. But if you wanted to use strawberry buttercream, or if you wanted to use, and one thing I've done really nicely actually is added peppermint candy canes on the outside. So if you want to use
some candy canes, we have this. We have
that's another bûche recipe. But like if you wanted, instead of the hazelnut brittle, you could make just crushed up candy canes and add them on. My kids really love that.
You can put 2 candy canes.
So you have complete creative free reign of adjusting the flavors. I recommend following the recipe exactly, and then mixing and then changing the flavors for the next time around, so that you get a little bit more comfortable. If you're comfortable with baking, then by all means change the flavors, mix it up, use different liqueurs, use different parfum.
Yeah. Look, this bûche recipe is something that everybody can do, because as you see, the logs, came out of the fridge. It was a little bit cold. You have 1 or 2 cracks. If you slightly put, the buttercream, you can roll it to give him a nice shape. On the top of it, you can put the buttercream, and after the ganache, it will be amazing. At the slice, you will never see the crack, because the buttercream with a simple syrup on the genoise will fix it together. It will bond, no problem.
Merci Natacha, merci Sarah. Joyeux Noël à vous et à très bientôt.